Let's now shift focus to the commodity market. Brent oil climbing above $100 a barrel today. Let's go across to Peter McGuire to get a sense of what the outlook is. Peter, thanks so much for joining us. With these oil prices inching higher on the back of Saudi Arabia floating the idea of an output cut by OPEC Plus to support prices, do you think we're now going to see a further spike in crude? Will it remain at these levels? What's your sense?
Well, I do agree with the economic outlook. That's the first part of it. Okay. So the uncertainty as far as PMIs, drought conditions, weather outages, businesses cratering, and certainly conditions across China, Europe, and equity markets, they're all pointing to and the inflation story, they're all pointing to negative sentiment. So where that rolls on crude, one would only think that if you're looking at the big picture, you've got that Russia situation still ongoing. You've got what's happening there as far as supply tightening and what you mentioned with OPEC. It may ratchet up further from here, but I think Main Street and the consumer would certainly like cheaper prices, not higher prices.
Peter, gold has been losing sheen as well of late. Is it still a safe haven for investors amid fears of recession and geopolitical concerns?
As far as precious metals are concerned, the US dollar seems to be reigning supreme, with King Dollar having an almighty push up, and the issues out there facing from an inflation side, gold can't seem to get an even trajectory to move further forward. It seems to be very much range bound between that 17 to 1820 sort of number, and it just oscillates between the 2 points, and there's no clear breakouts either side. So it's there's not much to look at from a precious metals perspective, and where it's looking at the moment seems to be in a little bit further of a downdraft due to that solid move of US dollar index and what's happening there. Gold's sitting at the moment at $1,760, so it's far from bullish at the moment.
So crude on the boil again. We've got gold, however, losing sheen. What about metals, Peter? Prices of most base metals lost ground. Dismal data coming in from the world's major economies on heightened fears of that recession, dampening the outlook for demand. What's your outlook there?
Well, they've had a nice move up over the last, say, month, and copper went from 7,100 to 8,100, and that was a nice move. But it hasn't done anything since. The same can be said for a lot of look at the zinc market. Aluminium's been very flat. Where I'm looking, I just want to see some definitive breakouts, but you'd want economic growth to be solid, and you'd want the appetite as far as manufacturing. You'd want your PMIs at 55 and above, if not high 50s, to really demonstrate growth out there. And at the moment, it's looking very weak. If I look at the German manufacturing, the PMIs coming out of Germany, the composite in the high 40s. We understand the situation in the UK. Eurozone is very fractured. So, and the China appetite, they've got property issues over there, and the property sector's causing much concern. So from a base metal perspective, I'm not seeing any green shoots or any good news to really push the market significantly higher until we get something definitive. And at the present time, they're trying to manage inflation and ratcheting up interest rates, and that's probably not a great sign for the global economic situation as far as appetite for base metals.
Peter, do you think China is perhaps hurting the trade market too much, especially in the commodities side?
Well, I think so. I certainly think that it's a very difficult situation at the present time for the foods. Have a look at energy costs, base metals, So, and precious metals haven't done much. So the whole commodity complex is having a little bit of a wake-up call. I'm not suggesting that the long-term situation isn't going to be rosy, but at the present time, we're managing through government stimulus in China, trying to reignite an economy after the COVID lockdowns, and still they seem to be going onward. So there's a lot of, I suppose, viewpoints regarding the Chinese economy. And the general consensus out there is one of where is growth going to come from? We want to work through the property sector to see the damage there, a contagion, debt, and how that's all going to be serviced. So I think that there's a great degree of skepticism with the second largest economy, how we're going to move forward up until, Christmas time. There's a lot of moving parts globally that need to be worked through, and I think the next 4 months could be very dynamic for the Chinese market and certainly for global markets.
Peter, which commodity stands out then the best to really look at in the year 2022?
Well, that's a long point in time. A year, that's 11 months, and that's difficult. But I'll say this: I'll go for the next 11 weeks, and I think it's going to be natural gas. I think that there's further upside for that. So the gas price is very, very, I think, bullish. What happens with crude oil worries me. If we go back to 120, that's certainly not a great sign considering the hurt on Main Street. So I don't want to see higher energy prices. I'm selfish when I say that, because there's not one consumer in the world that wants to see higher energy prices. So yeah, I think at the probably natural gas and the gas sector, energy, over the short term, and longer term. Wow, there are so many components that really could come into play by early 23, and one of them could be certainly gold and silver.
All right, Peter, we'll leave it there. Thanks for giving us an overview of the commodities market and some of the key trends.